tumor, it can impact the tumor suppressor gene in a healthy way and decrease risk of cancer that way. And it's an antioxidant, but it also has been shown to lower insulin and help with lowering body weight. So when people drink 4 cups of green tea a day for 8 weeks, they had improvement in their metabolism and their weight and their BMI. And so that was helping her on both angles. We also gave her more omega-3 fats to help improve her triglyceride HDL ratio. So we added in 2 to 4 grams of fish oil, and there has been some really interesting research on kimchi as well at helping to improve somebody's insulin sensitivity. And so we had her start to incorporate lots of phytonutrients in her diet, lots of vegetables, but also kimchi to help with improving her microbiome. And she did really well. She was able to lower her weight. It took a few months to get the weight down, 6 months or so, but she even got that waist-hip ratio to that, to less than or right around 0.8, which we were happy with. So she's doing great.
That's amazing. So you see this happen, over and over with patients, and you sort of just dial in the simple recommendations that seems so obvious, but for some it's a little different. And I just to share a few cases of mine. I remember one who had, for example, severe diabetes. His sugars are 250, couldn't get it controlled. He changed his diet. He didn't want to change his diet. It helped a lot. But what was fascinating is he couldn't get that last mile until it was by accident, really. He was complaining of his gut and his bloating and all kinds of issues and gas. And I was like, so let's just try an experiment. Let's just try charcoal. Now diabetes is not treated by taking charcoal pills. But by understanding functional medicine and its relationship with the microbiome and inflammation and how it affects, for example, hormone receptors, causes increases in alpha, which is an inflammatory cytokine, one thing, it causes resistance. And so let's just try this. Wow, I took this charcoal and my blood sugar went to normal for the first time. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Or another patient was a trainer and a fitness trainer, and ate healthy, and she struggled, and she had high mercury. We got rid of the mercury, and she could lose weight. So I think most of the time it is really about the diet, and then I think adding the exercise too. We're going to talk about that, but adding exercise, even though you can't exercise your way into a bad diet, you can exercise your way into better health and fitness and increase metabolism. So it's really important to actually, as you're losing the other fat, to maintain your muscle. That's where you talk about the strength training and exercise. What about the next case you were going to share about? Who was a guy who had high blood pressure, had cholesterol, tired all the time.
Yeah. I mean, we see this all the time. If somebody comes to us because he had just gone to his physician. He's 47, and he had just gone in for his routine physical, and all of a sudden his doctor wanted to put him on blood pressure medication, and he wanted to put him on cholesterol medication, and so he was like, oh no, this is not what I want to do. And it sort of woke him up a little bit, and he said, let me just explore this a little bit and look into it and look at this a little differently. I don't want to just treat all my symptoms with medication. I want to see what's going on here. So he was just struggling with his energy, so he was feeling a little bit lower in energy. He would put on some weight, but otherwise he was just kind of doing fine. We didn't have a lot of other complaints. And when we did his waist-hip ratio was at 1. So again, remember with men, we want their waist-hip ratio to be less than 9, and he was at 1. And so this was a sign to me right away that I knew I had to work on insulin resistance and this visceral adiposity. I knew that this belly fat, this too much weight in his abdomen, was triggering his high blood pressure, was triggering an unhealthy cholesterol pattern. And when we did that particle size test on his cholesterol, we saw that his small dense LDLs were too high, and his HDL were too low, and his oxidized LDL were too high as well, which you know, when LDL cholesterol gets oxidized, that's when it can get damaging to the artery lining. So that's when we said, okay, we're going to really focus on your insulin levels here. And again, we pulled away all the refined simple sugars. He needed to get rid of some extra beer that he was drinking. We got in a lot more vegetables in his diet. We worked to increase his omega-3 fats in his diet. He didn't want to take a lot of pills, but he was really, and he was just in his diet. He really got motivated. He also got motivated because we talked about how that increase in basic hormones increases erectile dysfunction. And so he said, that's really interesting. I really want to lose this weight around my belly. And so that really got him motivated to get right on the diet and really worked to increase his exercise. We had him get some strength training in 3 days a week. He ended up working with a trainer, which was really helpful for him to stay motivated. And he started to add in a little bit more interval training on those other days. But that really helped him. And within 3 months or so, we saw that waist hip ratio come down significantly. And in like 6 months, he was at that 0.9 of waist hip ratio. His blood pressure improved, his cholesterol pattern improved, his energy improved, and he never needed to start medication. And he's doing really well.
That's amazing. And there's so many stories like that. It just sort of reminds me of this patient I had who was, kind of typical. So some of these people was typical, but she looked like the Michelin woman, I guess. Or total apple, like just brown. Obviously, it was round and skinny legs and big belly. And I thought, oh man, her tests are going to be so bad. Her blood sugar is going to be high. It's going to be terrible. And it was fascinating. Her A1C, which is your average blood sugar, what was fascinating to her, and this is just a speech to what really happens to people, is her blood sugar was perfect. In fact, we even did a glucose tolerance test where we looked for diabetes. And we gave her the equivalent of 2 Coca-Colas and watched whether her blood sugar went up or not. And it never went up. I mean, the blood sugar was under 100 fasting, it never went up over 110, even after all that. But what was really different, and this is the thing people should listen to, we're going to put in the show notes the tests that we should think about doing and asking the doctor for. I've written a lot about it, and e-packet, and there's great descriptions of actually how to diagnose this. But what she had was very high fasting insulin, like 50, which should be under 5. And after she took a sugar drink, it should be under 30. Hers was like 200 or 300. And so her insulin was so high, she was weight within a very short time. She lost like 50 pounds of belly fat, just like that, by shifting her diet and reducing inflammation and dealing with this sort of starch and carbohydrate intake that she took.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's pretty amazing. It's a really gratifying area. And I think, when we look at aging, when you look at fertility, when you look at chronic disease, when you look at productivity, when you look at your brain function, all those things are related to this belly fat. And it's really the drumbeat that we've been sharing for decades at the Wellness Center, which is really about quality of the food, quality of your diet. And it's why there's so much I'm writing books like the Blood Sugar Solution within the Detox Diet, Eat That, Get Thin, Vegan Diet, Food One That Shake, because if we can get this straight, we're going to solve so many of our global issues around health and chronic disease, the economy, everything else. So it's kind of an exciting moment where I think this is becoming more and more recognized. I literally just got a call with a senator, really his team, about how we can address this through policy. So I'm kind of optimistic. I'm always a little bit optimistic no matter what anyway, but I'm more optimistic than ever that we actually have a moment to start to change the tide on this. Any last thoughts on belly fat before we wrap up our podcast?
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Mark. It is really, there's so much we can do, and simple changes in your diet make a huge impact on how easy it is to maintain a good, healthy weight and to prevent this from happening. And, when you make those changes and cut out that extra sugar and cut out those refined carbs, you're also not only having an easier time of maintaining your weight and keeping that weight off your belly, but also preventing all those diseases like we spoke about. So,
that's so great.
Thanks for all the great work
Thank you for joining us.
It's really exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Liz. Thanks for being on this week's House Call. I love sharing this information with all of you. If you love this mini episode of Doctor's Pharmacy, share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to get your podcast, leave a comment. How do you guys really like that? We'd love to hear from you. And also, I've got this new incredible content opportunity, which is called Dr. Hyman Plus. And you can go to my website, drhyman.com, and more about it. It's, ad-free podcasts, access to our documentary series, and Ask Me Anything with me, where every month I answer questions through video personally, as well as Dr. Bo and others who our team are doing deep dives into functional medicine. So it's a really wonderful way to access a lot more content. If you're a little geeky like us, so Dr. Hyman Plus, check it out. And of course, we'll see you next time on the Doctor's Pharmacy.
Thank you, Mark. I think a lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression along with their quote autoimmune diseases, and people tell them, well, you're anxious because you have fibromyalgia or because you have RA. No, you're not anxious because you have those things necessarily. I mean, yes, they suck, it's depressing, but there's a brain component here, there's a neurologic component.
Welcome to the Doctor's Pharmacy. I'm Dr. Mark Hyman. That's pharmacy with an F-A-R-M-A-C-Y, a place for conversations that matter. If you've ever been chronically sick and struggle to find the answers, just listen up. This conversation is going to matter to you. It's about something that's pretty prevalent and mostly ignored or overlooked by traditional medicine, which are chronic infections and autoimmune disease. We're going to get deep into this with our guest today, which is Dr. Stephen Phillips and David Parrish. Dr. Phillips is a known physician. He's a renowned Yale-trained doctor, international lecturer, and media expert. He's published many papers in the literature. He over 20,000 patients with complex chronic illnesses in nearly 20 countries. He experienced firsthand the nightmare of an undiagnosed serious infection and nearly dying from his own mystery illness, and having to save his own life when 25 doctors could not. And that sounds exactly like me, Stephen. So I've been there. I get it. And Dana, thank you for joining us today. Dana and Parrish has recovered from a Lyme disease-induced heart failure, which is not actually uncommon, and was improperly diagnosed by some of the top doctors in the country, and Dr. Phillips saved her life. She's a Sony, top-topping Sony ATV singer, songwriter, who written songs for people like Celine Dion and others. She's become a major voice in the world of chronic illness, and her popular column on Huffington Post is read by more than 1 million people globally. Welcome, Stephen and Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's get into it. So we are living on a planet that's very polluted. The air is polluted. There's toxins everywhere. We're eating processed food, refined foods. We have all kinds of medications, antibiotics, that affect the microbiome, humus lumbar C-sections. And all these have screwed our immune systems. And we're seeing part of the immune dysfunction with COVID, but it's much deeper than that. It's the waiting for COVID, which is this chronic, low-level diseases that make people just not able to live their full lives. And I know I felt that, really both of you went through that. And what we're seeing is this increasing autoimmune pandemic. There's 80 million people with this untacked autoimmune disease. That's almost 2 or 3 times as much people who have diabetes or heart disease, which is kind of staggering, but they're all different ones, like MS or arthritis or Hashimoto. So you have different specialties talking about them. Look at autoimmune disease as a whole, it's a big deal. And the question is, why are we seeing such a autoimmune disease? Is it toxins? Is it food? Is it infections? Is it something else? And you've only written a book together called Chronic, which starts with the premise that a lot of autoimmune diseases are exploding, often because of underlying chronic infections. So, Dr. Phillips, tell us how you kind of figure this out. How do you come up with this hypothesis, and what made you interested in this idea of chronic infections and autoimmune disease? Because even though we know in medical school, we learn a few autoimmune disease related infections, it wasn't really around.
Right. So thank you. So I've been practicing in research, and I started treating lots of Lyme patients. And at that point, Lyme was the infection we had all the infection, and for a lot of us, it's the one that any of us have heard about. We haven't heard about these many other chronic infections. But people come in with diagnoses of, is it Lyme, is it MS, is it Lyme, is it fibromyalgia, is it Lyme, is it arthritis? And I would treat them for the underlying infections that I found. And what was one treated me like it can't be, like in disbelief. And I did a little dance in front of him, trying to convince him, because he saw me not walking. And I was like, look, I'm dancing, I'm not a good dancer, but. And then one was just looked like I was a one-off, like I'm a 1 in a million case. And she's like, look, 1 in a million things happen. I'm like, I'm not 1 in a million. I mean, my mom told me I was special when I was a kid, but I don't think I'm 1 in a million, and I think other people have very similar things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when I remember you were going to talk to Harvard, not presenting about a case of autism that dramatically turned around. And one of the pediatricians there was like, well, you know, this might just be a case of spontaneous remission. And then one of the other doctors, well, Dr. Hyman's had like 5 cases of spontaneous remission in practice this year so far. If you understand like what the roots are. And you also talk about in the book your dad who had heart failure and needed a heart transplant.
No, he did not have a transplant. They wanted
He
to
was going to need one, right?
Right.
So what was the sort of the discovery there? Tell us about your
That's
dad.
what galvanized my interest in doing what I do. It wasn't my own case. Like I said, my case of Lyme was pretty moderate, and I wasn't planning on doing this as a career. And but when I started learning about this, my father had a case of what was a viral meningitis in 1975. And then shortly after that came with non-specific heart palpitations, and it got just worse and worse. Then he went to atrial fibrillation, specific tachyarrhythmia, and then he went to heart failure. We took him to all the best doctors in New York City, all the top teaching hospitals, and we don't see him. We went to the best, and they all couldn't save him. And he got worse and worse. He had ejection fraction between 10 and 20. They said that his lifespan would be measured in months for a heart transplant. And I was just finishing up with Yale, I was doing Lyme research, I really had some experience with Lyme personally, and I was like, looked it up, I was like, holy crap, Lyme can do this. So I went to cardiologist and said, you know, Lyme can do this condition, now that you're coming out, can we evaluate him? And he rolled his eyes and just counted the whole thing. And you know, they published a study in 2015 where they looked at people with this type of condition, like heart failure, went in and did heart muscle biopsies on all of them, and found that 20% had Lyme DNA. At the time of the study, say that almost 2/3 of them had negative Lyme tests. So if you don't really have a big suspicion about what these infections can do, you're gonna miss it. And I've treated about 50 cases.
See, what you just said is I want to emphasize it. You said that 20% of the biopsies in the heart muscle were positive, but 2/3 of the people who had a positive test had a negative blood test. So in other words, you can get a blood test that's fine. Your doctor says your labs are fine, you don't have Lyme, but actually if you look deeper, you can actually find it. Because it may not always show up in the regular lab test. It's important.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, who goes and gets a heart biopsy or diagnosed Lyme? Like, it's the silliest thing. Like, you know, the tests are antiquated, like 40 years old. I would say I won't get on a 40-year-old death plan. I'm not going to trust my health to outdated technology with blood testing. But long story short, you wouldn't evaluate them because the guy went to the head of arthritis, and, you know, Bell's palsy. He said, you're a doctor, now do it. I was just, you know, fresh out of school basically. And I basically treated him, and his heart function completely normalized. He's 8 years old now. He never needed a heart transplant. He's not heart failure at all. And that's the story.
That's incredible. So you're saying essentially you cured an incurable condition according to traditional medicine with treatment of his Lyme disease, which is causing his heart failure. And I think this is just important to underscore because so much of what we see in my world, in your world, there are people who suffer from chronic illnesses who just don't get better, comes from doctor to doctor. They're often misdiagnosed because doctors often don't have a framework for looking at the causes. Functional medicine is this framework of metals which I've had, or Lyme disease which I've had, or obesity which I've had, or mercury which I've had, or mold which I've had. These are things which are typically ignored by traditional doctors. Even diet, for God's sake, which is more obvious, is often also ignored as the root cause of so many chronic illnesses. And I think what you're talking about is that there is hope for people who suffer, who struggle, if they can figure out how to get to the right person, which is not only easy, but to even advocate for yourself. Say, look, I've got a problem, I'm not getting out, and I'm going to take it for sometimes. You have to do a number of different things from the perspective of causes and symptoms. So you've got to look for arthritis, it could be metabolic, it could be gluten, it could be Lyme, it could be heart, not like we all have the things, but we basically just lump everybody into the same category. Oh, you got rheumatoid arthritis, or you got this or that disease, and we know it's you, you need the drug for that disease, but it doesn't really speak to the cost. And that's really what that's talking about. So refreshing to hear you talking about that. So, I wanted to jump to you for a minute. You got sick, and you also developed a Lyme-induced heart failure. You're a pretty young woman, and then you started talking about how you got a tick bite and a rash, and everything kind of went downhill from there, and went doctor to doctor until you kind of found Dr. Phillips, and you got treated. So tell us about your story and how you ended up being treated by Dr. Phillips, and what happened to you, how that ended up there.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I really found my life, and I was so many people are like me, where they got really derailed in time of their lives, and nobody would think so. It's absolutely devastating. So, I got a tick bite, I saw the rash, I got it within 5 days. I caught it because I knew when I got back from New Jersey and got back to Manhattan, and I saw it. I had been lucky that I was in a minority that saw the bite and the rash on my shoulder. Nobody had never see it, and many strains of Lyme do not produce a rash, and many other tick-borne infections produce no rash. So that's an important thing for people to know. I was right over the I knew it was Lyme. They knew it was Lyme. They gave me 3 weeks of doxycycline and antibiotic and said, you'll be fine, go on with your life. They also told me not to lose that time, and I was scared, and I didn't want to be a baby after. That was a really different thing really going on. I had no idea this very common ubiquitous infectious disease, which drives the pandemic of illness, was a political hotbed. Like, I had no clue. So I do take the doxycycline. I try to move on with my life, and 3 months later, I wake up all hell broke loose. The first symptom was that my breast was swollen overnight. I had all these fibrocystic changes and extreme pain. Went to the internist. She panicked. She sent me to an oncologist that day at Mount Sinai. He ruled out cancer. He agreed my breast was swollen and greatly severe. He didn't know why. He ignored it. I went to go on the time. Literally couldn't lift the floor, couldn't feed myself, couldn't walk my 29-pound dog. And I went on to have incredible body pain, brain fog, visual disturbances, anxiety, depression, intrusive suicidal ideation. Like, literally couldn't stop thinking about something out the window, but I didn't have to, but I couldn't stop. It was something that was monster to go over my job. I went on to see 3 doctors. Could this be related to tick bite? No. Why not? Because you took the 3 weeks of doxy and it's cured 100% of the time when it comes to the doxy. Okay, that's actually totally not true. The other reason that one of them gave me, and I say that, this is what one doctor in my use said to me, because I wanted to know. So I'm like, well, let's go over and check this too. Is there anything else? I don't really know. Sometimes I said, do you want to tell me my friends or numbers or anything? That's a great idea. Okay, well, here's my 3rd visit with you. It's hitting me. So I went on to have this horrible experience until December when I went to heart failure. And then everybody really got serious, really believed me. I mean, I do think some of them thought it was in my head, say so many weird, disparate, migrating symptoms that doctors are, when they don't understand something, they put you in the psychiatric bucket. That's a theme. I think, of course, you know that very well. So, and when you have these things, you do feel crazy because nobody can really help. And also, the fact that it's changing all the time, every day, it really feels crazy. So then, in December, when and it was Qigong protocol. There are plenty of them, different Chinese, you can say that was the choice I made, because I was in Manhattan, and in the city, and I could see them, and anyway, you know, I was like,
Yeah.
really, and I'm there, and there you go.
Well, you see this is really fun, you know, stuff, and it's really figure out what they're speaking. You know, I think what you're speaking to is they need to think deeply about rethinking medicine and rethinking how we approach disease based on the causes.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Hyman. Thanks for tuning into the Doctor's Pharmacy. I hope you're loving this podcast. It's one of my favorite things to do. Introducing you to all the experts that I know and I love and I learn so much from. And I want to tell you about something else I'm doing, which is called Mark's Picks. It's my weekly newsletter. And in it, I share my favorite stuff. From foods, to supplements, to gadgets, to tools, to enhance my health. It's all the cool stuff that I use. And I can use it. Optimize and enhance my health. And one of the things I'm doing is that I only give you once a week on Fridays.
Nova joints. Shout out to Rush Athletics.
What happens when you come along, a viral insult? So before COVID came along, I would have people who had a really bad flu, and then they were never the same, and then they developed chronic fatigue-like picture. And we do an evaluation for chronic concussions, find some, treat some, and get better. I don't think it's that dissimilar. I think COVID is a terrible, terrible virus, but I think it has the same common features with other viruses that it can just, be a big shock to the immune system, and it's ridiculously common how many of us will walk around with chronic concussions because we don't know it. It's really diagnosed.
How do we attack this far harder? Because I think that people are curious about it, they're not just about it, they don't really better. I don't know.
It's hard to find the virus. The studies, the people that have had persistent active virus, it's been based on GI tract biopsies and biopsies that are very bulky. So it's not just it's not biopsy places. And these tests are not available in routine drug centers. It's really like a research test. So doctors don't have the ability to do that.
And in terms of the critical
200-gram jump rope is no joke.
treatments that are working, can you tell us more what you're thinking about how we should be approaching this?
So there's a subset of local patients that This is a common
We've got a clinic within the clinic called Recover, RECOB, right, the COVID Recover Clinic. It's a multidisciplinary clinic around how to recover from COVID and from long-haul syndrome. So I think that there's some interesting things happening around the cancer centers or something like that. And you can also there's a lot of approaches to chronic infection, antibiotics, herbs, lifestyle, and more. Some of the other things that we talked about the show, like ozone and oxygen therapy, hypothermia, and other approaches. We actually also very so I think there's a lot of tools out there and options out there. Podcast, Sanity, where I went tonight. First thing I had Bartonella, I was really persistent. I was on the night flight, so key. Just functioning pretty well. I still probably struggle. And people who do well and walking, they are often those lifestyle. So what that works out and get it's not available in the United States, in Europe, and in Mexico. I was able to my body go 107 degrees, and after that, I'm doing the much during the time when we keep a fever. I said we start to it's really incredible. So it's not real for everybody, it's expensive, but for people who really struggling, there is often a way out. So, Nina, tell us about your perspective
that when he worked me up, he found another infection, Bartonella, that was also driving my symptoms. So my Lyme was definitely undertreated. There's no question. 3 weeks of antibiotics is definitely not enough for many people. Data is clear. So I should say that. But the fact that nobody looks for anything else is crazy to me. And I think he should be able to along with the quote autoimmune disease and people probably no, you're not anxious because you have those things necessarily, and yes, they suck, it's depressing, but there's a brain component here, there's a neurologic component, just like everything with COVID, and I think it's a lot easier for doctors now, not all of them, okay, so they're coming around to the fact that infections can cause a humongous multi-systemic illness that lasts and lingers, and that is driven by a chronic infection. So that, there's so much for them to learn. If they've been paying attention to Lyme for the last 30 years, we wouldn't be in this horrible mess with COVID, in my opinion, with long haulers. So I think it will be very obvious that there are chronic infections driving some percentage of people. So, it's a crazy thing to do.
infection, okay, we'll say this bacteria will treat you, we'll figure out the cause, and that's fine. But for these latent infections or chronic infections or latent issues, whether it's mercury or mold or Lyme or whatever, people are often struggling for decades, and there really isn't a method of figuring this out. And really, that's what we do at Cleveland and at clinic, at the Center for Functional Medicine, my practice, one of those things we do, Stephen, and a lot of doctors in the country are moving for this kind of business. Functional medicine is really hard. It's essentially
Feels so much lighter. And overrope's like half a pound.
But also there's a lot of incredible